So Nina's originally from Norway, and after studying and living in England, she's travelled extensively, and Australia is now her home, for some good reasons. Nina has walked the spiritual path for over 18 years. During this time she's spent extended periods in India and Thailand, immersing herself in spiritual study and practice. Nina is the co-founder of Holistic Yoga and Meditation and offers a range of workshops, courses and retreats within the field of Tantric Yoga, meditation, women's wholeness, awakening of the divine feminine and Tantric sexuality. Nina also runs her own very successful graphic design business, Nina Hansen Design. Please make welcome the inner alchemist, Nina Hansen.
Actually, I'm responsible for the wiring, and there we go. I have to turn my cell phone suddenly. Okay, so I didn't mean it like that. Divine intervention, I think. So I'm going to be talking to you about Tantra and the awakening of the divine feminine. Now, when I started doing this talk, I kind of thought, oh, I'm going to give a kind of quite an overall presentation about Tantra and the feminine and the masculine energy and how it all fits together because I'm very passionate about Tantra. Tantra is kind of my heart and soul. But then I started looking into it, and it sort of evolved in a different direction because I realized that there's one specific part of Tantra that I'm really passionate about sharing with everybody. There's one part of the Tantric knowledge, the Tantric world, that I really feel very strongly about, and that is the part of the divine feminine that is dealing with sexuality, pleasure and sensuality, both applying to men and women. It applies to men and women in slightly different ways. However, it is applying to both of us, as we'll see in this presentation. Now, so I'm going to invite you to come with me onto a short journey into Tantra, but it will require that you let go of a few inhibitions and a few preconceived ideas about sexuality, pleasure and sensuality. So the Tantrics, they have this idea about the universe that everything is energy, and it's kind of awesome to be in this sort of crowd because all of us kind of are energy believers, so it's kind of an easy way of explaining it to you. But the Tantric sees it in this way, that the energy has different forms of density. So it's starting down in the... it's still doing funny things. I'm having... Okay. That's okay. So we have this way of looking at the universe where it starts with the density of the rocks, then it goes into less dense energy like our physical body because it's more moldable. Then we have the liquids maybe like the blood, the water and all the liquids of the worlds, and from there on we could go into say that even we have an electricity in the body, like our nervous system would have electricity running through it. We have electricity in the world, and we could say that even a less dense form of energy will be our thoughts. That our thought is also a form of energy, but it's even more refined. So we could say then very much it's a bit like with a musical scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, di, da, 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 and it keeps going higher, and at some stage we can't even hear it. And in the same way in the universe, the energies keeps going more and more refined until it gets into maybe just some kind of abstract idea about the universe, that there's some kind of primordial desire about the universe wanting to be itself. And then it keeps traveling even deeper until you get to the source of the universe, when it is nothing more but just like the source of the universe, and it becomes the seed of the universe. And this part of the universe, the Tantrics call Shiva. They call it the unmanifested, or sometimes also the masculine energy. And they call it this because it's the seed of the universe, and they say that from there everything springs. So in the same way as you can say that the seed is in a tree, no matter how big the tree is, would you say that the seed is all the way through the tree? Yeah? And yet the tree is also in that seed. It contains the secret of what that tree is going to be like. It contains everything it needs to create that tree. And in the same way, the Tantrics will say that this consciousness is through everything in the universe. It is the source. And anything from here to the smallest vibration, the smallest desire to become something, it actually is energy. And they call it shakti, the manifested energy, and also the feminine energy. Now the Tantrics also realized that every human being carries both of these two forms of energy. So it carries consciousness and energy, Shiva and Shakti. That we as human beings, we are energy and consciousness. And wasn't that interesting how I've had lots of conversations with the beautiful Naomi that was here, and it's so fascinating how her amazing personal experience is kind of actually putting a face to all of these beautiful concepts. So we are made of consciousness and energy. But when this energy then comes into the physical world, it has slightly different qualities. And it turns out that women tends to carry a little bit more of the Shakti, the energy, and men tends to carry a little bit more of the Shiva, the consciousness. And this is a bit what they will... this is the quality of these energies. So this is a little snapshot, a little essence of this energy. This list could be enormously much longer, but this is what happens. So we have energy versus consciousness. We have nurture versus protect. We have moon versus sun. And we have feeling versus thinking. We have body versus mind. We have being versus doing. Think about this one a little bit. Keep that one, pin that one. And we have change versus consistence. Now, both of these parts of the energy is just as important. One is not better than the other. What we're really looking for is balance. We're looking for having an inner balance with both of these two energies within us. And we want to have as much as both of them within us so that we can fire on every cylinder. But what's happening in our world today is that we are suppressing parts of our feminine, parts of our masculine, so neither men or women are kind of having this inner union fully alive, and we feel that we're not quite full. And the Tantrics also discovered that in this amazing union between these two poles of energy lies an enormous power and enormous empowering and all sorts of other amazing things. They even see that when these two poles come together, it's a way of actually accessing your soul. Because remember, we had consciousness and we had energy and we had mind and we had body. And in this way, they see this union of energy as a source where you can access the depth of your consciousness, and that anything that comes into perfect harmony, whether if it is a society or whether if it is two lovers coming together in a sexual union, or if it is an inner union between your body and your spirit, that this is like the perfect union that is the source for empowerment, bliss and fulfillment. Now, in the sort of classical way of looking at spirituality today, this is what we've been made to believe. We've been made to believe that we have to ascend the mountain of purity. We have to leave behind the negative aspects of our being, the impure lower self, so that we can become perfect and we can sort of go into the highest spheres and save our soul. But it sort of implies that there is something wrong with us. It sort of implies that there's something that we have to leave behind in order to be worthy to come up to this glorious mountain of perfection. It sort of says that there is part of our being that we should be ashamed of. Now it turns out that this part of our being is a part of our feminine essence. That the beautiful realms of sexuality and sensuality and pleasure and joy of the body is not to be trusted. It must be guarded against. In fact, you should control it and maybe even suppress it. And the most enormous diabolical crimes have been done on this planet to suppress the feminine energy, starting with witch hunts up until the 18th century, where 40,000 to 50,000 women were burnt, and many of them burnt alive or drowned or hung. For even today, we have women acid burning, mutilation of women's genitals, and the list goes on with stoning and so forth, all a matter of suppressing this enormous, beautiful and delicate energy that we have in this universe. Now, the thing about this is that we as human beings, we have this potential, we have this inner being within us where we can access a part of pleasure, joy and consciousness through this part of our being. And classical spirituality has told us that it is a no-go place. It is a no-go place, and it has dear consequences for us as human beings, because it means that we are no longer able to access some of the sweetest, most beautiful parts of the human nature, because we have disowned them and put them away because they are to be shamed and they are not to be embraced. So what has happened? We have become disconnected from our bodies. We serve our bodies with stress, we serve our bodies with malnourishment, and we don't really know where the limits are anymore. We have become emotionally disconnected. A lot of men in particular have become emotionally disconnected, not any longer able to connect on a personal level in relationships or even with themselves. Also applies to a lot of us women. Now we have the feeling of not being complete. We feel like we're not any longer full. So there's a feeling of disempowerment, that we are not good enough as we are. So we compensate with shopping, we compensate with food, and we compensate with career and status and whatever it is that we need. We feel like we are not good enough as we are. There's something that we've got to add to ourselves in order to feel like we are worthy of being here, worthy of love, worthy of everything. And we have been disconnected from our sexuality and our sensuality, and we're no longer able to access the depth of pleasure that is actually available to us as human beings. And you know, if you actually analyze what happens to you when you make love, or when you have an orgasm, going even further, it is enormous. You are like putting on the firework of a chemical cocktail that is so ridiculously beneficial for your health and for your well-being. You know, you produce oxytocin, so all the amazing anti-stress things, and how could that possibly be something that should not be beneficial for us? In a society, we have been a world where profit becomes before people, and children goes hungry on a planet that is abundant enough to feed us all. We produce food that is made for transport, and it's not made for eating anymore. It has no nutrition and no taste. And we also abuse this beautiful being, Mother Earth, which we live on, with just raping her for her resources when much more kind and sustainable methods are available. You only really have to get a Facebook account, and there's like amazing inventions every day. And you never really see anything happens with them because it's not a priority. It's the profit and the goals that are more important without the balance of the heart. But the Tantrics, they realize that everything is connected. Everything in this universe is interconnected. And that if one part of the universe is out of balance, it affects all. And that means that this is a kind of a personal responsibility, because all of us is a part of this ocean of energy. And even if one person that's sitting next to you is a little bit out of balance, it's actually going to shake everything. Because it's like the little flipping of the butterflies is shaking the universe. And the Tantrics will say that stepping on one blade of grass and the whole universe shakes. And so because of this, we have a certain responsibility, because energy is very much like a fluid thing. It keeps flowing in one direction, and it will find it easier to flow in that direction. So we feed it into one way, and it keeps flowing that way, whether if that is the neural pathways in your brain, or whether if it is the energy systems in the society. It's all really streams of energy. So we have to make a really conscious choice to make the energy flow in a different direction to create change. Now, the Tantrics neither think that we are sinful or bad. They don't think that there is something inherently wrong with us that we have to change. All we have to do is let go of all the layers of constriction and all the layers of preconditioning that makes us not realize this beautiful, pure potential that we have inside. And So useless is a gem uncut, but once cut, it shines forth its brilliance. So it's telling us that we should no longer look at ourselves as being something impure, something that we should be ashamed of. You should just kind of try and start, if you can try and find a way of looking at ourselves as beautiful, pure and complete, well then life will look very different and your spiritual path will be very different. Now there is this idea that the divine feminine, and when you want to awaken the divine feminine, is all soft and beautiful, and we have long hair, and we just never say anything bad, we don't fart, just very, very, very feminine. Your poo smells like roses, and there's nothing wrong that you can do. Well, that's kind of true. That is one aspect of the feminine, but the truth is, when we looked at that at the start of this presentation, you know, the feminine is creation. So the feminine is as diverse as creation itself. And the Indian and Tibetan Tantric goddesses illustrates this really well. So they can be terrifying, like Kali. This is Kali. She's usually stepping on a corpse, which is Shiva. I've cropped it a bit so you can't see it so well. And the reason why she's stepping on him is because she's standing on like a little man, and often people think that he's dead. But he's not dead, because remember we said that Shiva was the source of the universe, so he's the unmanifested. She's kind of like standing on the base, the source of the universe, and she's dancing the dance of creation on top of Shiva. So it's not really that he's dead, he just hasn't become yet. He is her base, he is her stable source that she feeds her energy from. They can be artistic and sweet and beautiful, and they can be innocent and compassionate like Tara. So I really feel really strongly when I work with women and in women's retreats is that I don't want any woman to feel like, oh, now I've got to fit into another box. Because most women grow up their whole life and feel like they don't fit into the box. They don't fit into a certain perspective, and they have to kind of change themselves, do different things, have, I don't know, cosmic surgery, whatever it is that you have to do to kind of be worthy of whatever it is we're looking for. Because the shakti energy, the feminine energy, is as diverse as creation itself. However, they do have one thing in common. And that is that they're all somehow guided by the heart. That they all have a motivation from the heart. That they're kind of like a mother figure where one day you have to be strict and one day you can be soft and giving. But it all comes from a heartfelt place. And when we talk about the heart in Tantric sexuality, we're sort of referring to Anahata chakra, the heart chakra. They're kind of quite technical and expert on energy, the Tantrics, and they have a beautiful way of looking at it. Now, I'm not talking to you about this because I wanted to come here and have a sort of an intellectual speculation. So I have studied lots and read tons of books of yoga, spirituality, but I really wanted to talk to you about this specific aspect because it also reflects my own journey. I think it's so important that we all kind of share when we come along our journey and we have certain realizations. It's just wonderful when we can share when we have realizations, because what we help doing is that we help lifting everybody else. So we should never be ashamed or shy about sharing our inner strengths and development with each other. And women generally are quite good at this. So I was always a happy girl. I was a healthy, happy girl growing up. I was always one of the feminine girls anyway. I wasn't a tomboy or anything like that. I had a good career, a pretty good life, good sex life. And I was pretty happy with everything that happened in my life. But then I stumbled into the world of Tantra. And what I found, I was amazed at what was more there were to be found, that I had no idea. So I started doing different practices, and deep within myself, I found this sexy, social, so essential and sultry being that I didn't know that even existed. And it was like something became alive within me that I didn't know that I had. And what happened was that it sent me into a place of fullness. It gave me a confidence and acceptance of my body. It gave me a confidence in my sensuality and sexuality that made me just feel full and complete. And it's like all those images I had in my mind about how things should and shouldn't be suddenly was irrelevant, because I didn't need to reflect them to feel full. I was already full within myself. And I realized that this component of the divine feminine that we all actually carry, even if it's dormant at the moment, both in men and in women actually, but it is a little bit different in men and women, because men often are kind of, can often be comfortable with their more raw sexuality. Depending on the culture you are in, they can be very uncomfortable with their sensual side. So they also can be sort of cut off. But in society, they generally are not as publicly restricted in their sexuality as women are. So when you kind of invite this beautiful sexual and sensual part to come into play, something magic happens. So through yoga and Tantric yoga, which is a very much energy-based yoga, I found greater body awareness. I found more vitality. I used to be super, super skinny and I had very little vitality. My body was always very tired. Then I did a lot of tantric meditation. I was able to access depth of my consciousness that I didn't really knew was there, and discover new worlds and new parts and depths of my being. And through conscious body movement and dancing, I kind of invited this pretty cheeky and soulful, sexy being to come out and play. And my life was really quite different. Because when we awaken this part of our being, it's like pleasure, joy, and becomes a part of everything that we do. Because we take that part, pleasure and joy, out of the dark, and we say, this is a part of who I am. I'm a being of sensuality. I'm a being of joy. I'm a being of pleasure. And it flows into everything that you do. It's like everything gets better. You can put it into your work. It's passion, you know, so your work becomes passionate. Your relationships becomes passionate. Your parenting can become joyful and passionate, because this thing is now conscious. It's like that side of yourself that you asked to go to sleep is suddenly alive. Now, this is me at dancing, by the way. I kind of leave my man home and go out dancing 3 to 4 times a week because it makes me happy. And you know, that's another thing. I also, in my spiritual path, I was very strict. I was a yoga girl, and I still am a yoga girl. I couldn't live without it. I love it. But it's still very strict. It's very accurate. It's like body aligned. It's quite, you know, it's quite specific. That's what a lot of us yoga girls like, because we like being in the body. But then I realized that my body actually needed to be allowed to express. So I'll come to that in a moment. So I'd love to share with you a few little tips on how you can help yourself to awaken this beautiful side of yourself, of the divine feminine. And this, I must stress this, that it applies both to men and women. Now, I love Australian men because I'm from Scandinavia, and in Scandinavia, men and women can be very balanced. So the men are a little bit more feminine, and the women can sort of, on a mental level, not necessarily on the outside, be kind of a bit masculine, very sort of rational. So we're a little bit of a balanced society, and we're lacking a bit of polarity. Whereas the Australian men often have a really nice masculinity. They have a big root chakra, they're a bit vital, and a little bit more raw. And there's something quite sexy about it. You know, they can fix your car if it breaks down. Don't worry about it. So it's something really lovely about that when you're a woman, because you have this protector. But on the other side, Australian men can be a little bit extra uncomfortable about their more sensual sides. So for instance, the Latino communities, the guys will wiggle the bum on the dance floor, whereas an Australian man will be a bit not quite sure how I do that. So I'd love to just sort of stress that this actually does apply both to men and women. So be rooted in your body. Bring your awareness into your body. Feel it, touch it, it's yours. No one's going to take it away from you. It's yours to have pleasure, it's yours to have joy. Go for a run up a hill, sit on the sand, whatever you have to do to feel that you're in your body. Now the other thing is, it's a physical thing. You can't do it by reading a book. I can inspire you, but you've got to do it yourself. You've got to get in your body, find exercises that makes your body being allowed to express. Because sexuality, sensuality are a body language. It's a body language without words. Yeah, so now I'm in bed, and maybe you're talking when you're in bed, I don't know, some people do. But you know, you might want to just express through your body. So how you're moving, how you're touching, this is a part of a body language. And if that part of your body is shut down, it can't suddenly speak. It's like it has to learn a new language. So do things that allows your body to express. And I can't say enough that, because this is my passion, is to dance. And it doesn't matter what sort of dancing you do. Do yoga, do anything. But you want to find some way of expressing yourself freely. Turn the lights off, dance around the house naked on your own. It doesn't matter what you do. Join a dance class. It's all sorts of different forms. You can be earthy and do a tribal thing, or you can do what I love, which is like cheeky, there's cheeky Latin music. I have one of my dancing friends here, and so she's laughing. So basically what you will do is that you will bring this energy out into the consciousness. And I must say, a beautiful thing is to dance with other people. So going to fire rhythms, whatever, because then you're taking it out of dark and making it a public language. It's making it a public language that you have. And it will change everything. It's like you start to blossom. It's like you start to shine. Because when we suppress part of our being, we are diminished. We are not full. And just a little note that I'd like you to sort of put somewhere, and that is that if you suppress your sensual and sexual part of sensual and sexual part of your being 95% of the time in your life, so you're going to work, getting up all the time, and then you suddenly fall in love and you're going to have a passion, you go home and you want to hop into the bedroom, well, it's not going to come out to play. If that's like 2 to 5% of your time and it's dormant the whole time, it's just going to be dormant. It's asleep. It's going to take time to wake it up. But if you do other things where you allow this pleasure and joy to be a part of everything that you do in your life, she's ready to play and you're ready to play. So the next thing will be connect with the earth, because the feminine energy is the earth. Take your shoes off, walk on the beach, swim in the ocean, get your kit off, sit in the sun. You can get fined in Queensland, I believe. It's actually illegal to be naked. How can it be illegal to be naked? You know, this idea that there's something wrong with us, you know what it's done? It's stolen the innocence of our sexuality. It stole the innocence of our naked body, and it made it something shameful. Shame on them for doing that. What could possibly be more natural than your physical body? What could possibly be more natural to be naked, just out in nature? How could that be illegal? When we moved to the Sunshine Coast, I didn't know. In Scandinavia, it's not illegal to be naked. So I used to be topless all the time. And there'll be this huge beach on the Sunshine Coast, and where we live, you know, unless you're in the holiday season, there's not many people there. And here I am, on my own, finding a private spot, sunbaking, because Scandinavians sunbake, and we get really tanned, or we get sunburnt and we don't care, which is not like Australian. And so Anthony thinks I'm crazy, but I do it anyway. And anyway, I'm on my own. There's a beautiful little private patch, and before I know it, I have like 4 guys sitting around me. And I'm like, seriously? Here we got like a 5K beach, and there's only us 5 here, and we couldn't find another spot. So I realized that it wasn't as usual or normal to do this in Australia. But anyway, connecting with the earth in the most natural self. Allow yourself to be immersed in it. I don't know. Make fermented foods. It's magic. It makes you feel like you're part of Mother Nature. Grow vegetables. Grow a balcony garden. Whatever tickles your fancy. But just get connected with the earth. Balance being and doing, and this one is super important, because we know we had that little table with all the male and the female aspects of the energy. Well, doing, being goal-oriented, keeps you frozen in the masculine part of your brain, because we fill our lives with so much responsibility, making money, paying off mortgages. It's like everything kind of becomes very directional and very purposeful, and it stops us from kind of resting into our feminine essence. So what do we need to do? We need to find places where we can just be. So you go to work, you do all your doing stuff, and then you go and sit and watch the sun go down. You have a massage, give a massage, laugh with friends, but do things which doesn't really, you're not doing it for anything else but just being, for being alive. And it will also connect you more with your feminine essence. Connect with all the beautiful aspects of the heart. Kindness, gentleness, forgiveness, all of the aspects, love, that we know that exists in the heart, because the heart somehow is like the overseer, the mother of the feminine nature. And most of all, give all of this to yourself. Because you need to give yourself all the love and acceptance that you crave from the world that surrounds you. Because once you carry it in with yourself, then you'll be able to give it to everybody. And it gives you a beautiful sense of complete fulfillment. And we have this idea, and as a spiritual teacher I use this many times myself. We use this analogy where we talk about life as a journey. And it's just an analogy. But if we think it really isn't a journey, because you're never actually going anywhere, because you're always where you are. A journey implies that there's like a beginning and an end, and a journey usually, like I'm going to holiday and Bali, and the aim is to get to Bali. So if life is a journey, what's the aim? Is that death? It doesn't really make sense, hey? So you're never really going anywhere. You're always where you are, and you're never really going to be anybody else. You're always going to be you. So really, I would sort of challenge that, and I would say that the point of our existence is actually to be you, but even more you. As much you as you can possibly be. So we're not looking to be someone else or go somewhere else. We're looking for a depth of experience. So we're looking to let go of anything that stops us from being all of ourselves, and going as deep into these aspects as we can. Because the feminine nature, she's playful. She wants to flow with energies of nature. She wants to have fun, and she wants to have joy. And she knows that as we let go of everything, deep within ourselves, we find this shining pure diamond, and it somehow carries the answers to all of the quest of the soul that you have within you. And that on the depth of your being, you are a pure, shining, brilliant, innocent human being that was made to actually be filled with joy all the time. But I think it's such a misleading thing in our psychology that we think that we have to go outside of ourselves to find this. And I don't mean that just like in a spiritual point, because we know that. Of course, I'm not going to be fulfilled from shopping or buying another house. I'm going to do meditation. And yet you think in your meditation, I'm going to travel somewhere else, even in my internal world. But my advice will be that go and just enjoy life. Freaking have fun. Because really, this is paradise here. And I don't mean it in a hedonistic way, because that's kind of more of an escapism. But have fun. Enjoy being you. And allow yourself just to, go get undressed, look in the mirror and say, my God, you look gorgeous every day. Men and women, because we have this shameful feeling. So I will say that once we awaken divine feminine, particularly in every woman of this world, she will call out the divine masculine, because they want to complement each other. And then men and women can dance this dance of polarity and bring back a beautiful harmony both within ourselves and in the entire world.